Howdy folks, Kevin here. I'm coming today to talk about an issue that I think is really important and just kind of caught me. And that is to make sure that your tests actually can fail if something is wrong. And we're going to go into what that means, but basically we write our tests so that they can pass, but sometimes you can write a test that passes no matter what, and that is not a good thing. You want your test to be able to fail when there's actually something wrong. So I'm going to give you a quick example of how I messed up because I tried to go based off of memory, and my memory was wrong on how to write something, and it actually looked good. It looked like everything was running correctly, but I was doing it completely wrong. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a quick project and show you what went wrong. So give me just 1 minute. Okay, so I've got WebdriverIO installed. Let's go ahead and run our configuration wizard. We'll be taking the defaults for most of this. In my test, I was actually using TypeScript, but I don't believe we need TypeScript. If so, I'm going to have to re-record this. I do want it to auto-generate some test files for me just to make things a little bit quicker. Let's say no for page objects. Keep everything else as the defaults. I said no on page objects because that way it's a much simpler example. So what I'll be doing is I'll be creating a custom command. I was doing some testing around custom commands and TypeScripts and types, and I basically ran into a situation where I wrote code that couldn't fail. Not great. Let's go and open this up in my text editor. I've opened up the example file. You can see it runs a basic script, goes to the Heroku, not the Heroku app, the internet test demo site, and checks some things and does some assertions. So we have like this assertion, expect Flash to be existing, so it's checking that an element exists. What I'm going to do up here is I'm going to write a custom command, and then I'm going to run that custom command. Okay, so I could run this, and as you can see, it's going to not do anything. Nothing surprising there. The test will pass. That's all fine. What I wanted to see is, hey, is it actually running my custom command? So I wrapped this in an assertion. Okay, so expect browser.test. You run the command to be true. Let's go ahead and run that. So it popped up our window. It passed. Here you see it called the test command. Good. It called my command, and it returned true, so that's great. How do I know that this actually worked, though? Because it looks like it worked. You know, I said it returned true. That was what we wanted. So what if instead I return false? Okay, it still passed. What is going on? It returned false, but it passed. I did the await. I returned false. So basically I've gotten myself into a situation here where I thought that this was running just fine and doing the assertion just fine, but in reality, when I run false, it's expecting it to be true. So what I did, I'll just mention, I basically changed it to expect false to be true, and then I ran it again. So let's go do that real quick. And here, something really weird happens. At least it was really weird for me. It still passed. That was really strange because I thought the error was here, or maybe it was this await, which is why I took it out. But again, if I keep that await in there, it's still going to pass. And I think this is a common issue that we run into when we're coding, is that we run into these errors that aren't really, well, it's an error, but it doesn't show itself as an error. Basically, it's still passing. But there's like 5 different things that are going on. I'm using add command here. So as browser, I'll add that back in, test. And we're also using awaits because this is an async mode. So there's just multiple areas where this could fail. It could be that I didn't do the async or the await. Maybe it needs to be await browser dot await there, or maybe this await doesn't need to be there. Something is up with the code, and I don't know what's going on. Well, I do know at this point. I figured it out. Or maybe it's the way that I wrote this function that's going wrong. So what I did when debugging this, I take out that that level of complexity so that I'm no longer running through that code. I'm just focusing on a statement that I know should work. What's the problem here? I don't know if you saw it. You might have saw it at the very beginning, but this needs to be true. And now when I run the test, it's actually going to fail. And there's my failure. We expected the received value to be true, but instead it was false. And now I can go back in and change that to be browser.test, whatever, all that kind of stuff. But again, all this happened because I thought, based off my memory, that it was supposed to be true. I believe that's how it used to be in chai assertions, I think, used to be written this way without the parentheses. But now we've switched over to these expect.js assertions, and so my old way of remembering how to write this basic assertion was just wrong, dead wrong. And it didn't throw any errors, which is kind of interesting that it didn't throw any errors. But you know why? It's because I didn't call anything. If I had done, when I wrote this, it was actually trying to call toBeTrue as a function, but since toBeTrue doesn't exist as a function in expect.js, it threw an error. And that's what really clued me in, is when I did that. But this is because, again, in chai.js, in the expect framework, it used to be you could do expect true to be true. And that would actually work, which is another example of maybe we shouldn't be writing this kind of interesting format where we're not actually running a function here. Yeah, that's kind of weird. So it's like one of those magic things that chai.js handled, and now it's biting me in the butt years later because I've gotten so used to the magic code just working. So anyway, this is just a quick reminder that when you write your tests, make sure that they actually fail. Go back in and we'll take a look at an example here. Yeah, this passes, but what if we just change that? Sometimes you can just go in and change random text to be what you're not expecting, and let's double check that this actually fails, because if it doesn't fail, maybe we have something else wrong. And that could be, when we're using awaits and asyncs, sometimes you mess that up. Actually, I'm going to take away an await. I'm going to see if that still fails. Okay, so it's failing right here. It's trying to find the logged in secure area, and it can't. But what if we had forgotten? It did finally fail. What if we had forgotten to include that await keyword in our expectation? I don't know if it's actually going to fail. There, see, it passed. Even though the assertion should have failed, it still passed. Kind of interesting. You get this random error here, but if this ran on your CI/CD, you wouldn't notice it because you wouldn't be reading through the logs. You'd just be checking that it failed or passed, and here it passed, so you go, okay, everything works. When in reality, you're not actually running this assertion, and it's actually failing your assertion, and you're not checking it. Anyway, that's my tip. Hopefully, it's helpful. Hopefully, you can keep that in mind. Always test that your assertions will fail when something invalid is added in. Until next time, have fun testing.